Hello, friends. I am Chevy. Welcome to my shed. How are you doing today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Everything here is great. And if the title of this video is a little bit tawdry, is that a word we learned? Did I use that word correctly? Did we learn tawdry? Anyway, if it's a little bit, I did. Whatever. Not the correct usage of the word. That's fine. If it's a little, so willful ignorance. What I mean by that is not necessarily malicious ignorance. I think malicious ignorance is an entirely separate thing, and that would be feigning ignorance for personal gain or for laziness. Like I don't know how to do that sort of thing. That's not what I'm talking about. Willful ignorance is a concept I've been working on in my head a little bit to write about. Maybe it might be an article this week for the website. I didn't do an article last week, so I might use it for an article this week. But it's the idea of knowledge gets in the way of doing. And I feel that's, for me, an extremely truthful statement. I enjoy discovery more than the doing. I don't get dopamine hits for doing things. I never have. I finish a thing and I go, well, that was great, and I'm whatever. The work is not the part that excites me. It's the discovery. That's the part that excites me. And so for me to tackle a thing, and this is probably a bit of an ego trip, I enjoy being clever. So if I'm going to build a walk-in closet, I'm not going to go research how to build walk-in closets. I have a basic understanding about woodworking, and I would enjoy the discovery process and being clever on solving certain scenarios in that situation way more than I would enjoy the building of the walk-in closet or even having the final product. I don't really care about the final product. And so this all, of course, ties back to my current project, which is writing a book. I'm writing a book. Told you that. I took some time off from writing that book. I wrote yesterday. Got some good bit written down. And the big reason that I took that time off was because I wasn't convinced that my character's motivations were strong enough. But hey, that's some BS that literary critics use to grade books or report on writing. That's not something to be concerned with, especially for a new author, which I still consider I've written so many stories, so many words in my lifetime, but I've never put out a product that I've said, here's my thing. I did this thing, here's my thing. So willful ignorance is deciding, doesn't matter. I'm going to write the story that I'm writing, and that's what it is, right? I don't know that. I don't need to know that character motivation is an important part of making these characters seem believable. I don't need to know that. It doesn't need to be. In fact, I would argue that some of the most beloved characters or franchises are built on completely unbelievable character motivations. Cartoons, there's very rarely a reason for anybody in a cartoon to do anything they're doing in that cartoon. It's just absurdity for the sake of absurdity, and it's perfectly fine. So making myself pause and try to think up an answer to this solution or an answer to this problem is just nonsense. It's just fear. It's just the same BS that gets in the way of everything, and that's fear. It's fear of screwing it up. The reality is, everything that I'm writing right now, when I stop this writing process, this first writing, and I go, here's my book, I immediately throw that entire thing away and start over. That's how writing works. That's how, look at somebody like Brandon Sanderson, who writes, 5 books in a year. He still writes 4 drafts before submitting it to his editors. he writes he has a first draft, a second draft, lets alpha readers read that, a third draft, lets beta readers read that, a fourth draft, and then he turns it in. It takes him 4 attempts to get it right. Every book. And for me to think that I'm going to sit down and write a clean first draft and, well, I'm just going to take some touching up, that's nonsense. Complete nonsense. There are authors who do that. Don't get me wrong. You look at somebody like, what's her name? She writes under a whole bunch of pseudonyms. She's like a I hate to say she's a romance author, but she is. That's her core, and she also has like one of her pseudonyms is J.D. Robb, whoever that lady is. She writes like 12 books a year, a book a month, sometimes more. It seems like she is just literally writing first drafts and turning them in because she has a formula, and she's just replacing names and places in her formula and just churning out content. That's a totally feasible, and I'm not talking shit about her. She's made millions of dollars doing that. Good for her, right? But that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to write a semi-original story with some cool concepts and interesting characters and, build a little something. I'm not writing dime novels. So willful ignorance is willfully choosing to be a novice. Choose to be ignorant. Choose to just... Those fears are just garbage. They're just getting in your way. Throw that crap away and push forward. That's the only way anything gets done is by pushing forward. And the stark reality is I know fully I'm going to write 30, 40, 50, 70,000 words and I'm going to trash them and start over. And maybe I'll keep 30% of it. Maybe 30% of what I've written will survive into the next draft. Okay. Who cares? So that gives me the leniency to say, just write don't worry about any of that other nonsense until after you've written a book. Then you can worry about the nonsense. Then you can try to, okay, well, I'll just stick a couple more sentences because then the whole thing will have context and every, who knows? By the time I get to the point where character motivation becomes a problem, like an actual story problem, which almost never is, but by that point, I might have already figured out to this person. And instead of sitting here doing nothing for a week, I could have been just pushing forward. So I know this is not a new concept. I know that I've heard the idea of, I think I've heard it phrased as be a novice. Or have a novice's mind. I think that's like a proverbial thing. The novice's mind. Which is the part when you just do things because, I have a cool story, write the cool story. Worry about the literary stuff later. It's the same thing with woodworking. If you want to build this box and you don't know how, but you know how to make a cut on a table saw, build the box. You don't need to freaking worry about, will this joinery hold up or whatever? Who gives a shit? Like, you're building a simple box. If it fails, great. You're going to build 400 more boxes. You'll fix it later. God, I feel like I've told myself this so many times. Now I just got to figure out a way to put it all into an article. I didn't write an article last week either. I did research, but I didn't write like I should have. So, whatever. Back to it. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is topical. It's an adjective meaning having to do with issues of current or local interest. At the debutante's ball, all the debutantes at the ball wasted our time with inane attempts at topical conversation about politics and other distasteful matters. Topical, T-O-P-I-C-A-L. I don't necessarily agree or disagree with that. It doesn't have to be current or local interest, I guess, yeah. So if we're at a conference, a topical conversation could be whatever that conference is about, right? Yeah.